Who is your GOAT? No, not the animal that bleats. Think GOAT in all caps. Who is your greatest of all time? Is it a musician like Taylor Swift or Prince? Or is it a professional athlete like Serena Williams or Tom Brady? Or an Olympic star like Simone Biles? We hear this term, greatest of all time, in the news or on the radio, and many of us dream about the day that we could see this person perform if they're still alive. We buy merchandise with their photos on it, and we banter or downright argue with our friends if they have differing opinions about who is truly the greatest. Well, in the last verses of Mark chapter 9, believe it or not, the disciples were doing the exact same thing. Back in Mark chapter 8, just as Peter answers Jesus' question, "Who do you say I am?" by responding that he is the Messiah, Jesus begins to explain that he is going to suffer, that he's going to be rejected by the authorities. And we see that the disciples really wrestle with this. They don't want to believe that this could happen to their friend, to Jesus. And here in chapter 9, Jesus gets even clearer about what's coming next. He says, "The Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. They will kill him, and after 3 days, he will rise." The authorities won't only reject the things that Jesus is saying, the hands of these men will actually kill him. But this is confusing to the disciples. They don't understand it. They're thinking, Jesus, the one who we've seen heal so many people, there's no way he could be threatened by authorities. Jesus, the one who's drawn crowds to hear all these things he's teaching? No, his words are too important. They just need to listen. Jesus, our friend? It can't be. In verse 33, we learn that they're traveling to Capernaum, a city that's seen almost as a second home to Jesus. It's a safe place in their travels, you might say. So when they get to a house, Jesus asks the disciples, what have they been arguing about on the road? And the disciples, they don't want to admit it, but Jesus, being Jesus, he knows. And when you read it in verse 34, it seems a little ridiculous, actually. Here, Jesus had just been talking with them about something fairly serious, his suffering, his death, and they're arguing about the goat. Who is the greatest? We don't really know if they're arguing about this title for someone amongst themselves or for Jesus compared to some other authorities, but it's what Jesus says next that's important. Sitting down, Jesus called the 12 and said, "Anyone who wants to be first must be the very last, and the servant of all." And then to further his point, Jesus waves over a small child. You can picture a kind face and tender arms holding this child as Jesus continues, "Whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me does not welcome me, but the one who sent me." See, children, especially in Jesus' day, had no influence, none at all. Children need things done for them. They need attention, they need food, they need care. They can't do things for themselves or provide for themselves. They had no influence on larger societal systems. And you have to remember that influence was extremely important. The authorities, they were threatening Jesus simply because his influence was becoming too great for their liking. This son of a carpenter, he wasn't in the right lineage, they thought. He didn't have the right training. He didn't have the most wealth. He should not have any power in a system that likes people who do the right thing to become the winners, to become the greatest. So Jesus is reminding his disciples that God's way, that his way, actually flips societal expectations on their heads. The way of Jesus takes a person without influence, a servant, and makes them first. The way of Jesus looks at a child and says, actually, you are the greatest. It's tempting for any of us, me included, to wish for connections to a person who is seen as the goat of society, the person who has influence. It's easy for us to idolize their accomplishments and simply hope for a glimpse at them, to spend our time wishing for just an ounce of their talent, their wealth, their power, their fill in the blank. And it's equally easy for us to forget about the people in society who inconveniently need our attention, who need things done for them. The servant and the children in this story, they represent the people who were outcasts, who are outsiders. And rather than avoid the outcasts, if we're honest, we'd rather do that if we're honest. But I think Jesus is reminding the disciples and reminding us to just stop posturing for just a minute, to stop arguing about the influential greats who we might never meet or never become, to look at what's right in front of us. Today, I invite you to think about these things as you finish up Mark chapter 9. Number 1, what is it in society these days that promises influence and greatness? And number 2, what would it mean for us to welcome the outsiders or the outcasts today?